Okay, we ready? Welcome to episode 12 of Brunch with Besties. Of course, you have Sherry Renee and also my lovely co-host,
Chanel. Hey, y'all.
And today we have a special guest. Lawrence is here with us. Say hey, Lawrence.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Alrighty, so let's go ahead and get started. So we always start with the toast. So Chanel, who are you toasting to today?
I'm going to give my toast to DC. I was there over the weekend and it was awesome. DC is an amazing city. A lot of thriving black men and women. And it was just a blast. So I had a wonderful, wonderful time. I can totally see myself living there or going back multiple times. It was awesome.
Cool. Mr. Lawrence, who are you toasting to today?
I can toast to just everybody. It's really good to be around good people.
Alrighty. And my toast goes to Everyday Media for being so flexible. Because we up in here late recording on a Monday night.
In our PJs. It's slumber with besties
it is
today.
Definitely slumber with besties today. All right, let's go ahead and break bread. So Chanel, what's going on?
Nothing much, but I will say, like I just mentioned before, I was in DC over the weekend for Howard University's homecoming, so the real HU. And I feel like I went for the homecoming, obviously, but it was definitely more of a pilgrimage. You can't be in a black D9 sorority fraternity and not go to Howard at least once. Many of them were founded on Howard's campus. So it was just nice to see our plot and walk around campus where my founders were. So it was really surreal and kind of an awesome experience. I will also say while I was there, we got a chance to do How to Get the Ring podcast. So shout out to them. That was an awesome experience. So I was actually physically there with Juice and Will I, and they were amazing. And we called you in, so you got a chance to talk to them. And we were both on the pod, and it was really awesome. So again, shout out to How to Get the Ring podcast. Make sure you listen to them. They're great. So yeah.
Shouts out to them. And Lawrence, what's going on with you?
Well, I almost forgot. Nothing too much. Just really going into self-betterment, basically. Just really reaching out to different individuals and trying to help them out as much as possible with any advice or just teaching the children, really. There's nothing really too much going on, going into different career paths, so that's pretty exciting. And that's pretty much it.
Cool. And for me, I am trying to plan Nadia's gender reveal party. It's been driving me crazy.
Yeah.
But I can't wait till Friday where we can actually determine what the sex is of her baby. So Nadia did a few rounds of IVF, and this last time she was successful. So we're kind of making a really big deal out of this baby because it's a really big deal.
Absolutely. This baby is
probably
everything.
The biggest deal.
So yes. Baby Dewey.
Ooh. Baby Dewey. # Operation Baby Dewey.
Yes.
Okay, so let's go ahead and get into tea time. So October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
All right.
So here we have Lawrence here with us to discuss domestic violence because he was a victim. And also, how do I say this? I guess an abuser.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So we're just going to get some insight and hear from his perspective just so that we can get an understanding of where these things come from.
Yeah.
Because it's real out here.
It is.
It's real out here. So the first question is, let's get your background. So can you tell them who you are in terms of how old you are, what's your race,
All right.
do you have children, just some basic demographics.
I have 2 children. My race is multicultural. I live in the Wisconsin area. It's been fun, just really getting to know myself over the last maybe 10 years or so. It's been great to do that. I had a little bit of education, self-taught a lot of myself, and also had a lot of mentors going on through life. Made some mistakes and learned from them, and definitely just want to bring the light and just kind of have a little bit of a voice out there. Don't know exactly where this is going to take me, but this is pretty a real situation here, so I'm kind of looking to I don't know. I think this is the first time I've ever shared anything with anyone else besides
here on the pod with us.
Absolutely, because our goal and our vision is always to heal and help others as we heal and help ourselves. So hopefully this is a healing experience not only for you, but for those who are listening as well.
Yeah.
Definitely. So how old are you?
35 years old.
35. And then you said that you're a multicultural race. Can you give a little bit of background on that?
I'm black and white and red all over. No, it's messing with you. I'm just messing with you. But basically, multicultural, different races I don't want to go into, but there's so much. There's Native American, which is another one of them. And I spent time around both races, which is kind of interesting just to see both sides of everything. It's a more of understanding when you see exactly where the world is and where it's going, and kind of getting that understanding. But anyway,
okay. So let's start with, first let's tell the story of you actually doing the abusing. So when can you remember was the first time?
I would say the first time was I believe I was with my ex, of course. I was with her, and let's just I guess just kind of starting from a story where I was taught and raised, I guess, the right way, if that makes sense.
When you say the right way,
well, I would say, I don't know the right way. Well, I was in a church home. We had some church believing parents, and they taught us, what to do, what not to do, and things of that nature. But what I did was I derived from that situation and started hanging out with some questionable individuals, and got kind of a street lesson, and didn't have any business kind of going into that area, if that makes sense. I was really confused when I was young, because being multicultural is really, I think it's sometimes hard if you because back then it was, you kind of got looked at a little differently because there weren't so many of us, but there was a lot out there, but they just weren't together, if that makes sense. So we would get the, there's a black man with a white woman, and look at this child right here, and you're like, and then you're just getting staring and what's going on and whatnot, and you're like, wow, am I the only person? There's a crazy story I'll talk about real quick. Is one time I went to school, I think it was 5 years old. I think it was about 5, maybe 6, and was getting ready for school. And my dad said, get ready for school. I got myself ready. So I got some baby powder. I said, I'm mixed. So, I'm going to go ahead and put baby powder all over myself so I can be white today. Because the majority of the people that I went to school with, were Caucasian. And there was probably one black person inside the classroom. And my dad was like, well, what are you doing? You got to be proud of who you are. Take that off, boy, and kind of that conversation. And then, and then it was like the joke of growing up and say, hey, you know what that boy did, so.
Remember Lawrence when he was 5?
So, so that was funny. But, I stayed with the wrong group of people, and, kind of trying to derive from church, because we were going to church every day, every single day, just about. We bled church. If you cut me, I'd bleed church all over the floor, no offense to anybody or anything like that, but we were in the choir. We read the Bible. We had to learn the books of the Bible just like any other kid, but we went to church all the time, and it was just crazy. And then, it was kind of hard to kind of, believe that you were doing that, and then you're just a kid in church. But anyway, then started kind of falling away from church, acting like I'm going to church, but didn't really go to church type thing. And then just getting into mischievous things. And, you know, I'm a very spiritual person. I believe that sometimes you're attacked more and you're tempted more than most individuals out there if you are, you know, in the church or your father or mother is in the ministry. So it was kind of a hard situation, you know, to kind of deal with. So just the identity was probably the biggest thing for me, if that makes sense. So yeah, so that's a little bit of my background. Went to school, high school, skips classes, you know, but got a good grades, I guess, at the same time. And, you know, became an adult. Knew that I was supposed to do some things the right way with women in relationships, but didn't really understand the dynamic of exactly the right way, or what my path was going to be, and not going into it young, because I got married at a young age, around 20, 21.
Okay.
And went and got married and didn't have a plan really. Just knew that I was going to get married. I was going to have a kid. I was going to have a really great life. I didn't know what that was going to be, but then stress was happening and things were happening. And then, you know, I was listening to, I believe music is really important, you know, to a lot of people. And I think that sometimes it's important to look at, you know, what you listen to and what you accept in your life. And sometimes your thoughts aren't your thoughts, right? So we find out that we're around different people and different individuals, even though we're taught the right thing, we might be around that wrong thing. And then all of a sudden what happens, we start in our subconscious having thoughts that aren't yours and accepting those thoughts. And then it becomes who you are in a sense, but just like we do things without even knowing. And you're like, why do I do that? Why did I do that? Because all the things that happened when I did become an abuser, didn't really know why I did it, but I just knew that it attacked my manhood of who I was at the time, or what I thought I was as a man. And I thought a man was supposed to be this, but I found out, you know, something kind of different later on.
So what did you think a man was supposed to be? I
think that, you know, a man was supposed to be basically a person that, you know, provided for your family, which I did that with the hands down. That was never a problem for me, money wise. Sometimes you do some stupid stuff with money because you didn't know, you didn't have your father and mother said, hey, you need to save money, right? But you're like, well, okay, well, what do you got to do to save money? Now I understand, have the understanding, but to basically, I guess, I thought making the rules was, you know, by myself was one of those things. I thought that, you know, just pretty much I say what's happening and that's the way it's supposed to be. But, you know, I didn't think of it was more of a partnership, I guess, at the end of the day. So I was very confused about that. It was a hard thing for me to really comprehend, or even want to comprehend, because I had a set mind focused on having a hard head, I guess, at the end of the day. So having a hard head, having everything around you, you make sometimes bad decisions. And then ego was really huge for me. It's something I'm still trying to conquer as well. And that's pretty much what came down to, was an egotistic thing. And I had a couple occurrences with it, and being insecure about who I was, because I didn't know exactly what my worth was, and I didn't understand what my woman's worth was, if that makes sense. If I'm rambling, you guys gotta tell me, hey, you know what, go ahead and just stay focused, because sometimes I do that.
No, get it all out. So, yeah.
So then walk us through the first instance that you can remember.
So the first instance that I do remember, I'd have to say, one time me and my girl, first of all, it started with disrespect with small things. Maybe, you know, maybe she had deceived me, or I may have deceived her about something, and we had an argument, and there were unfinished products of, I guess, the argument or whatever. I'm trying to find the words.
Kind of like leftover.
Yes. So we had leftover arguments, and things just would build up and kind of turn into like a little ball, and it'd be frustration, and it'd be just more or less really not understanding each other, speaking totally different languages, like we came from two different planets, kind of like the Venus and Mars theory. And it was kind of terrible, and it came down to, you know, I'd be jealous. Where are you going? What are you doing? And I think she had went out for a walk one time, and I didn't know where she went. And I was like, man, maybe she's going to go meet somebody or something like that, you know. And I'm like, what is this about? You know, this is terrible. She left me here with my kid, and she probably went out to go see somebody, you know. And at the time, you know, there were, you know, some other things in play. There was alcohol that was involved. And, you know, when you kick it in an environment of being in the streets, you know, you kind of, I think a lot of people become kind of alcoholics almost in a way, since Hennessy and XO Hennessy is just my drink. That's what I used to love drinking. You know, smoking Black and Milds, and maybe sometimes the wacky tobacco. You know what I mean? So sometimes that will happen. But, you know, when you have those things, especially I think, you know, alcohol, when you have those, you know, I guess spirits is what they call it over in Europe or whatever, you sometimes your inhibitions come out and you have an excuse. But anyway, she came in the door, and I think that you know, I was angry, and then I think she was telling me, she's like, I said, where the hell were you, and blah blah blah, and I grabbed her, you know, by her hair, and I pulled her down. And that was that right there is when you're in the moment of it, when she's like, baby, what are you doing? Because this is, you know, first occurrence. And I'm like, well, I don't know what I'm doing. And then I was like, you know, this is crazy. And then I'm like, you know, I apologize afterwards. And then it just kept on. And I think I had it just kept on, it kind of kept on getting a little bit worse, I guess, at the end of the day. So then there would be, you know, name calling, and we just both didn't really have the maturity level, and I believe we let society get into what we were doing. I wasn't more or less focused on what the word of God was saying, more or less. Does that make sense? And I just I was kind of in my own self when even though I will apologize, but I felt right in what I did, if that makes sense.
So what did you apologize for?
I apologized for putting my hands on her like that. And, you know, she explained to me that she didn't do anything, and she wasn't doing anything. And that time, you know, I didn't want to hear none of that. You know, I was pretty much, you know, I was a fighter. I used to like to fight a lot. I used to I've cleaned up, like, I don't know, you kind of know me throughout a little bit, Sherry, and I cleaned up a lot from where, Miss whatever your name, Chanel, sorry.
It's okay.
Lord? No, it ain't.
Right. You said whatever your name is. Wait a minute, Lord. This is my show.
Right,
okay,
exactly.
So for you.
You know
don't learn what my name is.
So that was a hard thing. So I mean, at the end of the day, you know, I just made some really bad decisions, and, you know, looking back on it, I'm ashamed of it, because I know that there should never be an excuse for making a decision just spur of the moment.
So when you said, I apologize for putting my hands on her, but I felt justified in what I did. So what did you feel justified in?
I had felt justified at that moment because, you know, I was telling her that I wanted, you know, basically I wanted to get order. I wanted to get her attention because she wasn't understanding me, because there was a communication barrier. And I think that's the only thing I can think of right now. That it was a communication barrier in some kind of way, shape, or form. I then found out that you can't do that. And then, you know, after that happens, you know, then later on, so I think it was like maybe a year later, we had another occurrence. And we still were kind of fighting back and forth. And it was just, and throughout that time, we were, you know, headstrong. She was really emotional. I'm really like, you know, like I'm black and white. You know, I'm like, it's like this is what it should be. I didn't understand that when you talk to women, you can't just go ahead and, well, I understood it before, but I just kind of, you're in a relationship, well, you know, the game's gone. Instead of going, because I'm always like, I'm going directly to this situation, but sometimes you have to go directly to that situation. It's a double-edged sword, so it has to be with bows and ribbons and some flowers or whatnot when you say it, you know, if that makes sense. So, hey, you know, I didn't know anything about that. I kind of knew about it, but I was selfish. That's basically what it was.
So then, who taught you how to love, and what did they teach you?
Later on, I think I talked to my father a little bit more to find out more about this, on how to love and what exactly to do and what not to do.
Well, so that's after the fact. Which
This is
great.
after the fact, yeah.
But beforehand.
Beforehand, who did I talk to about how to love?
Who taught you how to love? So, like, what did you see?
I think that I learned it from I'd have to say I learned from maybe watching videos, looking at the surroundings around me, not being able to understand what the dynamic was between a man and a woman, because I really didn't. It sounds bad, but I don't think I really cared, if that makes sense. I cared, but I didn't care. I knew that R&B was there for me, you know, and I listened to that, you know, but we know that, you know, if you hound a woman after she leaves, she probably doesn't really want you to come back because you're kind of pushing her away. Don't leave me, girl. Right? But, you know.
So you're taking these cues, like you're taking how to love and how to be with a woman from music.
From music and, you know, my peers and maybe in the streets, because these people in the streets that I hung out with and I was getting advice from, they really didn't know how to do it either, because they came from a one, you know, person family, usually be just a mother most of the time. And, you know, I think I just took the cues from wrong people. You know, I knew it was one way, but I was really enthused to do it another way, I guess, at the end of the day, if that makes sense. I chose not to really use my brain, if that makes sense. So, yeah, that was a horrible time. So then I had another occurrence, and then I found an excuse, and I think that, you know, there was something, I'm gonna call it an artifact that I had. And my mom had passed away, and this artifact was broken, and it was broken out of rage. And I was like, well, how could you? And, you know, I had just went to a point where, you know, kind of backhanded her, and I was like, you know, and that was wrong of me to do as well. And that was my second occurrence that I had. And, you know, at that time, that was kind of like the point where I was like, man, I may have a problem, but, you know, still stubborn. I need to make some better decisions with my life, and it just, you know, when you don't talk to somebody that actually is a person who has a really great functioning relationship, or, you know, you're really selfish about things around you, you don't make the right decisions, I believe. You know what I mean? There's so many people that they just don't have the right people to look up to, I guess, at the end of the day. And well, we kind of keep our feelings inside, a lot of us guys out there, and we don't know how to explain it or how to communicate it in a way, or have the respect for the fact that somebody may not understand how you put it, but, you know, explaining it to them so they'll understand, because you just like, you just should know this, you know, because you know, you're on some dumb shit, you know, you don't understand what I'm saying, things like that. So then I think this is my last occurrence, and the only thing that I think that really stopped me was, I was working, and then she was like kind of talking to me, because at this point in time, you know, I was working, and I was real late working out. I worked hard hours. I provided for my family, and I worked like 3-4 jobs at one time. And I think the last occurrence this is pretty much like the breaking point. And then like 2 years later, we were pretty much out. We broke up, and I had came home and she said, where were you with some other bitch and blah, 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 and all this other stuff. And I was like, no, I'm not, I'm just tired. I'm just trying to relax and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, she threw a chair at my head and then she threw some baby chairs in my head and I was trying to restrain her and then she hit me in my mouth and then I took her in the bedroom and then we were in a scuffle and I headbutted her in her head. And that was the last occurrence. But what happened was I knew that I had messed up and I feel that she was going to call the police on me. So I left. I had left and I went to my friend's house. And, I tried to call and talk to her. But anyway, she had made a report and one of her friends had told her to make a report. And I'm glad that she did make a report looking back on everything that I had to go through. So I went there and it was the craziest situation because sometimes you feel like you're the only one going through that. And, right. when you look at guys who do that, you like, man, you're a bitch ass nigga. I'm sorry, can I say that?
You just did. You did.
So
okay.
whatever.
Hey, tell your story.
And we don't edit.
Tell your story.
She was just a bitch, And, and I was like, damn, I'm a bitch. I'm a bitch ass dude. Like, damn, this is crazy, right? So I was like, man, this is terrible. So anyway, I went to the police station and I turned myself in, talked to the detective. He was cool. He handcuffed me at first, but then he started talking to me and then I told him what was good and what I really did and how I made a mistake. And he's like, you know what, man, I hit my wife a couple times too. She didn't call the police and get a ticket, but man, this shit happens and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, this isn't good advice.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Thanks, officer.
Right.
Well, and this is a Caucasian male, he was definitely somebody, that you would look up to. And then and I guess obviously as you look back on it now, you look at statistics, a lot of police officers do beat their wives, actually. What the statistics are, I'm not really sure of it. So, but anyway, that right there stopped a lot of stuff for me. That was when, I lost it all, basically.
How old were you, Lawrence? Because I know you said you got married at 21.
I was probably like 20. I had to be about 24, 25, okay. 25 years old or something like that. And, still doing the regular thing. At that point, I had a good job and something happened and they reran the background check because of whatever policies they were, because some situations that happened at the end of the year. And because of that, they had to interview everybody and I was good at my job, #1 salesperson in the Midwest and everything and blah, blah, blah. And they pretty much I lost everything. They told me that I couldn't have the job there. In the meantime, they told me they couldn't tell me that I lost a job because I had disorderly conduct, domestic violence on my record. But what they had to tell me was that I had no more passion. So it was like a bullshit type of thing that they did because they couldn't by law say that, or I could have had a lawsuit on them or whatever. So they cried and they walked me out, took my keys and blah, blah, blah. And I didn't have a job. So for a week, I didn't know what to tell, my girl that I had at that time. We were together and things had flew by and, I said I would never do it again and everything. And that's the last time that I ever had a occurrence of any kind of domestic behavior that was any violence. And then, well, let me finish this real quick. Then I had a job. There was this really good job. I was going to get paid, I think it was like $70,000-$80,000 a year with my commissions and everything. I went through the process. I was about to get hired and filled out the paperwork, did the background check, did the drug test and everything, and got the job. They called me and told I couldn't have the job because, I had this on my record. So then I had another opportunity to make a little less than that, about $68,000 a year as a manager. And I couldn't get that job either because, everything went good and I knew the guy and it was set in stone. I was going to get that.
Right.
In the meantime, I worked at this other place. It was at another place that I was working at, and I was there for 2 weeks, and I'm like, well, I'm just gonna move up in the ranks here, you know. And their background checks took 2 weeks to get back, so I got a background check on them, and then they said, no, you can't do it because of X, Y, and Z. I'm sorry, we can't discuss it anymore, and we'll send you a letter and blah blah blah. So at that point, I was like, man, what the fuck? You know what I'm saying? So it was a really bad situation, and I started realizing some things, and I think that, you know, God was dealing with me in a lot of things that, you know, you can't just, you know, you in the streets, you can go hand in hand, and you can, you know, do whatever you need to do to get done, and so on and so forth. And sometimes you would, I mean, the way I grew up, like sometimes you would, I don't want to say that, but anyway, what I'm saying is that, you know, you would do things and it would just be done in the streets because, you know, no one would tell, nobody would pretty much snitch on you.
No repercussions.
You would have no repercussions and everything, but this like hit me because I had children, and I didn't know at that time, making those wrong decisions, that it would affect my life like that. So I went through a, you know, depression stage, and then I was collecting unemployment, and thank God, you know, because I always had this mentality that no matter what I did and I made a decision, I would always be on top. Anyway, long story short, I did get in a situation where I did get a job, but it was in cash, and I got to run and be a manager and something, so that supplemented the cash. Plus I had, you know, my unemployment that was coming in, and I kind of chilled on that for like, you know, for a while, which is pretty bad. But anyway, I, you know, then lost, you know, my then lady, and we separated, and then I really started focusing on like, wow, you know, I made some really bad decisions, and, you know, I was like, dang, you know, I just want her back. I'm going to do right. So I gave my life to the Lord, you know, and this is a long story. I'm sorry. Should I stop? Okay, so I gave my life to the Lord, and, you know, I knew that he could, if anybody could change anything, he could. But, you know, I went into it wanting to get my lady back and having her back with me, and having my family function, because, you know, I started getting advice from other elders and pastors and things of that nature. And I'm like, man, I want just a regular job. I'm supposed to be driving, you know, like my Audi, you know, I'm supposed to be, you know, doing some big baller ass shit, you know. And at that point in time, still kind of had that mentality, but, you know, giving my life to the Lord, doing the right things, man, I went down to throwing my CDs away, because I knew music affected me in a lot of ways, because, you know, I was always on trap music. Like one of my favorite artists was David Banner. I don't know if you guys heard David Banner's first album. Have you ever heard that?
Yes.
Might get your...
I've heard you play it.
All right. So there's a lot of stuff that,
and back in the day, that Crucial Conflict.
Well, there's a lot of stuff that they did, and I was involved in that life as well. You know, so it kind of tells you that it was a stupid decision that I made. But anyway, it stopped me from doing a lot of things. A lot of progression stopped, but I'm glad that it happened, because it was like a rude awakening. So I vowed, I said, never again will I ever put my hand on any woman ever again. Anyway, she came back, she tricked me, found out she was a liar and all this other stuff like that. But I was like, you know, the circumstances of what happened, I can't blame her. And we fell apart, and, you know, luckily, through God's grace, I did get everything kind of in my favor because of the things that I did do. And I mean, I don't want to go into that, but there was a lot of stuff that I had to do and had to be on top of, and things just kind of fell in place because I had the mentality of focus of where I needed to be at, if that makes sense. So
to go back, did you ever do like anger management or anything like that?
No, actually, you know, so no, I never did any anger management at all. That's funny that you say that. I didn't do any anger management, but I actually, when I was a kid, I did do peer mediation classes. So I do remember some of that stick, and also I did read books sometimes, but not as full-fledged as I do now, if that makes sense. And now I study the word a little bit more to get closer to, what God, would want me to do, if that makes sense too. So
I was thinking that too. So you mentioned that, you kind of got back on track with God and giving your life over to the Lord. But did you all as a couple think, well, maybe we should go to counseling, or maybe we should see a therapist or do couples counseling?
Well, there's a lot of stuff that I did skip. I didn't go really in order, but yeah, we did do that.
Okay.
We did go to counseling, and at the end of the day, I was still, I wasn't abusive in that way, but I was mentally abusive. So it's pretty much like, you're not going to do this. I run this. I'm the king of the castle. You're going to do this and X, Y, Z. So I made her life really hard. So I think, to be honest with you, I think she might still be scarred from that. And I feel bad about it. I mean, it's not that, don't get me wrong, I don't want this lady anymore. Right. But because of everything that happened, I'm really excited where I'm at right now in my life. But, I know that, I did do some of those things. So I asked for forgiveness. I, from her, I asked for forgiveness for God. I forgave her for whatever she did. And, it's and then I kind of backed up from God's word because, because I started running out of money again. So I had to start doing other things in the club.
So, did you see or witness abuse, physical, emotional, mental, growing up?
In my household, I don't believe that I didn't see any abuse or anything. I'll say between my brothers and sisters, sometimes there would be abuse, and I've heard of it, or, I have my sisters, they would get abused by their abusers. So I've heard some stories about that.
What was your reactions when you saw your siblings being abused?
When I was younger, I really didn't understand it. So when you're like 5 years old, you really don't understand, but you know that you're going to, you and your daddy going to take care of it and go see who these people are. And, with that, I really didn't understand or comprehend or not really care to understand, I don't think.
Okay. So you kind of alluded to the fact that, you mentally, physically, emotionally abused her and that you think that she may still be impacted by that today. What effects can you say that it has had on her? Like, how is it showing up in her life?
I don't know. I think that, me personally, I can't speak for her because I don't know. It is really an assumption. So I can't really say this is what she really feels. But making a, I guess, educated guess, I would have to say that, kind of the way she, I don't know, because she brings it up every now and then whenever I talk to her. She talks about, that these things happened, and it's been so long ago, and it's not that I'm bringing it up or anything like that, but she's like, she kind of segues into it. Well, this, that, and the other, and, I don't want you, and all. I'm like, where is this coming from, But I can understand kind of like, well, she like, really, she's like, I hate you. I don't want to be around you. I don't want to see you, and X, Y, Z. So I can say that in that way, and also how she tried to turn my children against me and try to tell them at a young age what exactly happened. So that was a hard thing too, just telling them exactly what happened from the information that they got, and just being real. Because I told them, I said, you know what, I'm not a fake person, and I don't believe that, I should lie to you guys. So I'm going to be honest with you, and I'm going to tell you what happened. So I told them, what happened. And they had a lot of questions, and mostly the older one, she had little questions here and there. And I said, when things happen, you got to own up to them. And maybe it's not the best facts, but at the end of the day, you have to learn from them.
Right.
Yeah. So as you were talking, I was thinking the same thing. So, you had kind of experiences when you were a child with your siblings or whatever, and then you had your own experience going through it. So how do you think it affected your children after you had this conversation with them? You know, how did they feel about it all?
I mean, you know, I think that at the end of the day, you know, I told them what they should and should do. It never happened around them, so they never seen anything.
Okay.
So it was more or less she heard, and they were like surprised, like Daddy wouldn't do that, you know, and everything like that. Because, you know, when you look at your parents, sometimes you look at them like, man, they're that dude.
They're heroes. Yeah,
they're heroes. Like, come on, man, Daddy don't get hurt. You know what I'm saying? Daddy don't do crazy stuff like that. But I told him, I said, hey, you know what? Sometimes you make bad decisions, and I want you guys to learn from my mistakes, and you got to understand this is what you need to do and what not to do. So they weren't around it. I don't think they really heard any of the I don't know if there was yelling, but it would happen at nighttime, and you know, we used to have music up loud at nighttime. So I don't know if my daughter heard any of that. She never spoke about anything. That's a great question to ask her. If she
I'm sure
heard
she
anything, possibly.
Girls are nosy, so
Well,
she did.
Right, exactly.
That's true.
So,
and then, you know, as children, we interpret things differently, and our perspective. So that would be something interesting for you, you know, to again pull your children and have that conversation with them again. So yeah.
So you kind of gave us a lot of good nuggets here. You were saying that you had kind of an identity issue. So just the importance of knowing who you are. You had an idea of what a man should be, right? So it was kind of my way or the highway.
Yep.
Had a lot of ego issues and also some insecurities. So how did you, then you also mentioned that you could be jealous at sometimes, and that there were alcohol and things like that played a part in it. But so how did you change or make, you know what I mean? Like, how did you take all that? How did you learn that these are my issues? These are the things I need to work on.
I think just reflecting back and just knowing why you do things the way you do them, because a lot of people do a lot of things that, I mean, everybody's guilty in this room of doing things and you're like, why do I do that?
Right. Yeah.
It's because it's not your thoughts. A lot of the thoughts that you have in your mind are not your thoughts, if that makes sense. Because they're put there in two ways, and I believe spirituality is really big, is in, you know, the devil might put them there. You might hear something from your environment, or maybe the music that you listen to, or people that you hang out with. You start emulating their spirit, if that makes sense. And that's what I kind of felt like. You know, I just got wiser by reading and really focusing on what I am and who I want to be for my kids. So there's situations where I got into another relationship. So the other relationship that I got into, it wasn't really the best relationship to have, but there'd be cursing and things that I try not to do. But, you know, it kind of flipped on me. And it's like, I think it was like my bad karma. So I started getting abused by a lady, which is...
Was this the relationship following the first relationship?
This is a relationship after 2 years of being out of a relationship.
Okay.
And going into another, like 2-3 years, and then going into another relationship. You know, by that time I had, you know, education of what a man should do. Even though still struggling with my ego, but doing the right things and actually making a effort. That relationship taught me patience. It taught me how to deal with crazy people. No, but you know, there were situations where I got hit in the head with a champagne bottle. I got scratched up, or I got, you know, hit a couple times, where there was a point where, you know, I decided I walked home miles, you know, at night, because I didn't want to be, you know, in the car with this lady. Because, you know, sometimes you just got to walk off. You got to do something else to make sure that you are out that situation. That's a huge thing, is just finding something else to do, to think about it, because before you make any decisions that could be, you know, life-changing, you got to think about what you got to do, because decisions that are huge, you can't just make those right away. because sometimes quick reactions aren't good for you when it comes in a negative form. So anyway, just disrespected, man. Just and it happened, it actually happened more than 3 times. It happened maybe more than both of my hands that I had some issues with. Or
so then over a
hit
span
me.
of what time frame?
I would say over a span of like maybe 5 years or something like that.
Okay. So then why did you stay for
Yeah.
5
Yeah, that
years?
is crazy. That's crazy. You know what? I think that what happened is that I kind of punished myself because I felt that that's what I probably needed in the back of my mind. Thinking back on it, a year after the relationship, there was verbal abuse, there was craziness, things that just didn't really make sense to me, and I kind of felt bad about what I did to the
previous
the
woman.
previous lady, I think, and I just kind of accepted, well, I got to go through this because there's light at the end of the tunnel. I can do something to make something happen. And we'd have a lot of breakups, or there'd be a span. I'd break up with her for a couple months, and then we get back together, and we break up, make up, break up, make up, break up, make up, and it was just really unhealthy for me. And yeah, it was just a really bad situation that I was in. So, if that makes sense, so I think I beat myself up. And
Did you ever tell anyone
tell anybody what?
that you were in an abusive relationship?
No, I don't think I ever did.
Okay. So why do you think men don't speak out about it?
Well, it has to do with ego. That's for sure.
The look that you gave me was why men don't speak out about this.
Well, you know what? Let me take that back, because I do believe I did talk to a couple of my friends about it.
Okay.
And my friends are, educated guys. I got a couple doctors. I got a couple lawyers that are my friends, and they believed in the school system, and I always wanted to surround myself with, after I got out that relationship, with that girl. Well, even in the midst of that relationship, I started letting go of all my people that I used to hang out in the streets that were the drug dealers, the thieves, the murderers. I got friends that are murderers. Or people that murder people.
Friends, right.
Or, well, they weren't friends, but
yeah.
I mean, to be honest with you, these people murder people. These people did a lot of crazy stuff. I don't know anything about what their murders are or who they did, but I just know of it, and some of them went to jail for it and got out, within like 10 years or so. But anyway, that's another story. But I just gotta say that, I came a long way, but I think a lot of people, when they're in that situation, they don't kind of see it as that, and they kind of just go on for their next day activity.
What did you see it as?
What did I see it as? I saw it as craziness.
Okay.
But
so you like, she hit me, she being crazy. This is her being crazy.
No, I think that was like, she hit me, I'm about to ride the hell out. But she was very persistent. I think at the end of the day, she was a better salesperson than I was in a way, and I blinded myself. And I think that I just had, I don't know. I really don't. I think I just had like a lot going on.
Did she apologize and do like the things that you said that you did, like, I'll never do it again?
I mean, she did do some of those things, but she was totally, it was a different level. It was a totally different level with this girl. She did apologize. And you know what? I'm not mad at what she did. I forgave her for whatever happened. I'll never deal with her again, obviously. But I found out that my worth was better than being in that relationship. So it came to the point where my kids had actually gotten kind of involved a little bit. And she had stalked me. She was stalking me or whatnot. And it just got really crazy, and I was like, man, never again. And then she tried to keep me, and she told me she was going to kill herself. I had to send the police over her house to make sure she wasn't dead, because she said she was going to take a whole bunch of sleeping pills and all that. And then I just went cold turkey, and I didn't talk to her for a long time. So I think it was like 3 years later, I think she contacted me. And then we talked one night, and I told her, she was like, she wanted to get back with me. She's like, I realized I did the wrong thing and blah, blah, blah. And, I thought you were crazy, but I found out that I had issues. And she had issues she was going through as well, and things that didn't add up, if that makes sense. So, yeah. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm very relieved not to be in that relationship.
So what was there? Okay, so I watched Chris Brown's documentary. It's called Welcome to My Life, and you all know he had his own incident with domestic abuse as well. But he talked about his situation, and he said, you know, there was one point where he just stopped and he was like, you know, what are we doing? Like, why are we doing this? Did you have that moment in either of your relationships? Like, really, like, what are, like, in this moment when I'm, you know, got you up against the wall, or she's swinging a chair in my head, like, what are we doing? Did you have that?
In my first relationship, I'd have to say that for sure. The second relationship, I didn't put any hands on her because I wasn't about to go to jail to lose my children.
Yeah.
So, you know, I was even in, there was a situation where, you know, old me would have did, you know, bodily harm to, there was this individual, and this guy, he was talking crazy, and this happened, I think, just a couple months ago. He was talking crazy, and he did something, and, you know, I just, you know, instead of wanting to go to jail, because, like, I could have made that decision to, you know, beat his ass or go ahead and do whatever I needed to do, but I knew that me having longevity outside of just trying to prove a point right then and there, because the guy was disrespectful or anything like that, I need to be out and be around my children, and I need to be, you know, making the right decisions for them, if that makes sense. So that what became my whole mantra. I think the relationship before, and then just throughout life, because there's different situations where, you know, you have a choice, and then, like, things try to tempt you a little bit and say, hey man, come ahead, and you just still on that person, you know what I mean? Hit that person in their mouth or whatnot, and then you be like, well, no, that's not what you're supposed to do, and you just do it with love. Like, I knew the reason why I didn't do it was because I loved my kids, and I love that guy too, you know, but you know, it wasn't worth it for me. It just gets to a point where it's not worth, you know, losing everything.
Yeah,
that
I got too much
I
to
mean,
lose.
I'm like, I already lost everything.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, you know,
like, we already learned this lesson.
Yeah. So I decided, you know, not to do that anymore, if that makes sense. So yeah, it was a hard life, and I made some bad decisions, and a lot of them were with alcohol, because I was in an industry where alcohol was a much abundance, and I think, you know, that had a lot to do with a lot of things that we're doing. And then I had found out that the girl that I was with, she was actually on other drugs that I didn't even know about. I'm like, what are you doing?
The second young lady or the first young lady?
The second girl.
Okay.
Yeah, not the first one. She wasn't on any drugs, but yeah, I found out the other girl, she was on drugs, and there was a lot of stuff that was going on that I didn't even know. And she had contacted me, you know, first, second time, and she was telling me she was having a bad life, and that she had got introduced to Molly and ecstasy and all this other stuff, and she had moved down south, and I was like, you know, yeah, it was just crazy. And I don't know. I don't know if she has an addiction problem or whatever have you, but, you know, I was like, man, I just prayed for her, you know. That's all I could do.
Yeah.
So that was a hard situation. But yeah. To see somebody go through that, and you're like, man, you got kids, you know. You got other things that are going on around you, so yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned that when you were a child, you didn't really see it or care to kind of know about, you know, abuse in either situation. But you have daughters, or
I have a son and a daughter.
Okay, so what do you tell them about it? Like, how do you want them to view it, and kind of what lessons do you want them to learn? Well,
there's a no relationship policy in my household. I don't play that. So I guess ego does get the best of me in that way right then and there. There's not gonna be no relationships in my household. Let me tell you that much.
No.
But at the end of the day, I think that, you know, what can I say? I mean, never let anyone put their hands on you, because they could do it again.
Yeah.
They're gonna definitely try to do it again. And if they did it that time, they're not in the right state of mind, and that's not the right relationship to be in. Verbal abuse, calling names, that's huge. You know, the relationship I'm in now, we have a policy, no calling no names. We don't do any of that. There's no hands on anything. We're able to talk about things, and I'm glad that she can accept some of my ego that I still have. I consider myself as an alpha male when needed, if that makes sense. When I need to take care of things, she runs shit too, just like I do. So, and sometimes that can be a power struggle, but we get back down to love and what our focus is on where we're gonna go, where we're gonna be at, and what is the model of our relationship. So right now, I know that she speaks a different language than I do. You just gotta have patience. If it comes down to, if you feel like you are going to hit somebody, you probably don't need to be in that relationship. If you feel like you need to call someone out their name, you probably don't need to be in that relationship at all. I think that that's a huge thing that a lot of young people do. And I was just telling my daughter the other day that I don't want her to be in a relationship now, even though a lot of people say, yeah, you gotta test it out. You have this.
And how old is
girl? She's 14. So I was like, I said, I believe that relationships are good to have with friends. But when you come to a boyfriend, girlfriend, you got to understand your mind's not mature enough to understand how to work a relationship. You haven't read relationship books, and you haven't got any counseling on what to do with relationships, X, Y, and Z. You need to focus on your schoolwork, because you have all these girls that start getting boyfriends at age maybe 9 because they thought it was cute, right? Oh, that's so cute. Age 10, oh, that's so cute, and then all of a sudden now that cuteness turned into, we're hitting third base, and all this other stuff. We're about to start, fucking. You know what I mean? I'm sorry. I don't know if this is a Jesus show. But,
no.
Okay.
I mean, we love Jesus over here.
We love Jesus.
We do.
But I mean,
but tell your story.
But at the end of the day, it's like, you can't have anything like that. And you're going to get confused because that person did something to you, and now you have this stigmata about this relationship, and then now you go to another relationship and there was this, and now that broke up, and then you went into this relationship and that broke up. Now you're not living your dreams and your goals because you want to stay back because you're in love with somebody, and then that relationship may or may not worked out.
So then are you preparing her for relationships? Are you teaching her about love and relationships and things?
Yeah, actually I am. I've sat down, we've been talking the last, I'd say 2 years about, how a man and a woman should interact, how they should have respect. We've been reading the Bible and talking about that. I haven't really touched that much on for my son. I know she likes boys. And I know that.
And she is beautiful.
She is beautiful. I don't know if I have a picture. Did you see? This is my.
No, I haven't. So I'm like,
aww.
Yeah, they're both really great looking kids. Wow.
Yeah, that's my babies.
Yeah, you gotta. Let's talk to her a lot.
Yeah.
So the big thing.
Gorgeous.
And I'm always trying to tell them to stay on focus, and then we talk about the flesh. The flesh always wants you to. Do something a little extra here and there, and you're going to want to have these ideas.
Extra.
Well, I mean, there's some things that, may happen where your flesh might get in play, but you got to stay the focus of what your goals are. So we do goal focus, but, at the end of the day, no matter how any kid is raised or done, you never know what way they're going to go and what they're going to do. Because,
That's
true. I was kind of raised the right way at the end of the day. I mean, maybe there was some things that should have been talked about, but at the end of the day, I made decisions that weren't so great. But I think me being a father, I can kind of tell them what's going on, but they got to experience some things themselves.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a no relationship policy in my household about any of that.
So then, do you think that she'll rebel?
I mean, I think that, at the end of the day, maybe one day she's going to probably have a boyfriend. I'm pretty sure she'll have one. Does she have one now? I'm going to say no.
I'm gonna say yes.
You
I'm
think
just
so?
playing.
No.
No, but
Probably not. But when if and when she does, like,
Yeah.
what tools have you given her to prepare her for that?
I think, I'm pretty much kind of set on the no boyfriend thing.
Okay.
But I mean, at the end of the day, I think that, what a communication's really huge.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, I don't know. I really not trying to,
'Cause
I'm not
that-
going to be one of those guys going to give my daughter any birth control or
Yeah.
anything like that. I'm not like, hey, here's
It's
some birth
the
control.
one thing that I think we always have to remember is that a lot of times people teach us things, like they'll tell us what's right and wrong,
Mm-hmm.
but we typically do what was modeled,
Mhm,
regardless of how
absolutely.
much time they spend on telling us what to do and what not to do.
Mhm.
More often than not, we actually do what we saw,
Yeah.
not what we heard.
Because those cycles are hard to break. So
Yeah.
Those cycles are. It's just like when they say cancer, like people who get cancer, they say it's genetic, which I believe that. And I don't think it really is genetic, but it's about how you see your family eat over years.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's kind of like that. Like, so I understand what you're saying. So I have to say that, I guess at the end of the day, I'm still trying to figure. I let her do whatever she pretty much wants to do. If she wants to hang out with her friends or anything like that. But she's usually a pretty good girl. She's let a lot of girls go that were fast. She talks about fast girls. We talk about how she dressed and how to be a lady. And then she also has a couple people to look up to and teach her about some etiquette and things of that nature. Now we're trying to get her to stop burping so much. So that's a big thing.
Wonder
right
where she learned
there. Where
that.
she learned that from, right? But I mean,
But yeah, because some of the things that you talked about in terms of just like ego and things like that, like I wonder if things like that were modeled, right? So then if it came out, if it manifested in the form of abuse, but if that is what was modeled, if that's what you saw, like, this is my house, this is what it is,
my way or the highway.
my way or the highway.
that was kind of the mantra, and I guess passed down kind of from my father. In the house is like my way or the highway, but it was towards the children, and it was not in any kind of way towards the wife of the house, because it wouldn't go like that, if that makes sense. That's not the name of the game, and that was a forbidden thing to do towards her. Him saying anything like that to her. But it was more or less like to us. He was like, hey, you know what? This is what we're gonna do. This is my house, and X, Y, Z, and so on and so forth. So maybe I got a little bit of that from him. But, I still got a lot of work to do. Being a parent, being able to have them be straight A students. I don't like to try to take all the credit, but having them have a focus, have goals, and where they're going to go, and just knowing exactly what they're going to do on their day-to-day basis, and knowing that things are going to be there and you're going to want to do these things, but knowing that you can think. You have to take time to think, and if people try to rush you into doing anything, you have to take back and say, well, why are they rushing me? Is this something that I really believe in, and is this person really for me or not? Now, my daughter had this girl she really liked, and she seemed really nice, but she was always in her phone, always like playing games and playing poker on her phone while she was sitting back in a wife beater. And I was just messing with you, man. I was just messing with you.
I was like, where is this going?
So shouts out to dude. I was like, wait, hold on, why is she playing poker?
like,
She's 14. Like, I can't even play
Right,
poker.
I was
Like,
really
what?
confused. Like, she gambling?
And
Like,
why
this
she
is
got on a wife
problem,
beater?
Right, like, oh my goodness, this baby needs some help.
If you
She
guys-
is gambling.
If you guys don't know, the engineers in the background, he's playing poker. In the
And well, we are here during
Right.
his normal sleep time.
Right. He probably like, I'm going to need for y'all to hurry this up.
I thought he was gonna answer the door in a onesie.
Listen, we could have. We was so thinking like, just make us a pallet, dude. Just make us a pallet. We're gonna be spending the night.
but at the end of the day, real talk, we were just she basically was with this girl, and I guess she was boy crazy, and the discussion and the model of the conversation wasn't of what we put as our family crest. So our family crest, what we have is our last name, we're the blanks. This is what we do, and this is loyalty and what we do for loyalty. And every week it would be something we would learn about in one word, like we'll do pride, or we'll do giving, or whatever that mantra is for that week. And knowing we have these goals, and even though you leave my house, you got to go do this at somewhere else, and you got to have the respect for other people. Don't ever let your mom call me and tell me that you aren't doing what you're supposed to be doing, because then we're gonna have World War III. And or we're gonna not yelling. I don't believe in yelling because I'm too cool for that, if that makes sense. So I don't do that really, and I guess I'm still a little cocky.
Yeah,
pray for me.
But we don't say a lot of cocky.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, man, what I do is I just put my that's what we do, is we talk about something. We have a mantra that we have in our household and what we do, and this is why we do it. And we don't, if this happened, is that what we do? No. If we're in class, we're raising our hands and we're trying to participate. If we don't know something, we're going to say we don't know it. We don't hurry up when we do our homework. We're not trying to hurry up and get done. You got a lot of homework, but then the other person got the other chores or something like that. And then we talk as a family, and I'm like, my biggest thing is, I'm trying to get to know who you guys are as people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dad, you already know us. Well, no, because things change, because you might like different interests. So how can I get closer to you?
Right.
So what I do is I make sure that I keep in contact, and then they explain what their day is. So they send me their day, and so let's see, we're here. So I'm not going to read it, put on blast, but as you can see, they tell me about their day and what they do, how U.S. history was, and how this and whatnot. My son,
APA style.
That's like a whole. I was just gonna say she has citations, double space,
10 pages. APA.
So
this is a paper.
Bibliography.
Well, we do this every
Works
day.
cited page.
Well,
Ain't nobody got time for this.
Audit.
Now, we do that every day. Now, I told her now everybody does this, and but we're not better than anybody. But what we're doing is we have a focus, so we know why we're doing things and why we do this. So I feel that if I can teach my children on why they do the things they do and why they make the decisions they do, I think they'll be better prepared on when stressful situations happen. They know to make the right decision. If that makes sense.
No, that's great.
So then, and my son, that was, now this is just part of it for her, because she sent me another one, but then my son, he sends me his day too.
No.
I would have been like, can I send it to you in picture format?
Listen.
Well, sometimes they do that.
Okay, I'm like, can I just call you, because I can't write all this.
But the thing I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make sure, that's my son right there. So it's like, the thing I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make sure that they know how to write a good paper, how to take notes, how to give the information and communicate with me, or communicate, and so we can have that communication. So I said, you're not going to talk to anybody that's going to do what we're doing, probably. They're probably going to say I'm crazy or something like that, and I might be a little crazy, but at the end of the day, we're talking, we're getting to know each other, and I'm still trying to get to know who they are. So that's important.
Cool. So then what would you say were your biggest lessons from being an abuser and then being a person who was abused?
Having a purpose. I thought I had a purpose. You're like, what's your purpose, man? When you would have asked me probably 15 years ago, 10 years ago, I'd be like, man, stack this money up. You know what I mean? To be a boss. What would you think I was going to say?
Nothing, go ahead.
Okay. Oh, it's terrible. I think I know what you're going to say. But, at the end of the day, I think that, you would ask me then is like, what's the purpose? But you got to have a purpose. You got to have a goal. You got to have, you got to have that goal put in front of you all the time, because you're going to lose focus, because guess what? Terry down the street, pitching that, hey, he's going to mess with you a little bit. He might say something. You know, Sarah down the street, she might, you know, be going through some stuff, and she sends some people to come try to whoop you or something. You know, I gotta give shouts out to a guy I really don't like, and don't stand for anything really stands for from what I've seen, but you know, one guy, you know, he's about kind of like a Zen type thing. He just got his ass beat the other day. His name was Be Real or something like that. You know, the rapper Lil B or something. Lil B. He got his butt whooped, but you know, he came out and he said, you know, he loves them and X, Y, and Z and so on. That takes courage to do that. You know, I don't know what like I said, I mean, just that action itself is cool. But anyway.
Wait, when did that happen?
That happened yesterday.
Yeah, they talked about it on the Breakfast Club this morning.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I thought that was pretty cool. But
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, you guys got to stay on top of this stuff. So I mean, at the end of the day, man, you got to make sure that you have a focus, and you know, just because something happens, you can't get outside your body.
Yeah.
Just because that happened, you know.
Yeah.
And then when these situations happen in front of my kids, it's a learning point because I know that this is their life.
Yeah.
Their life is nothing to be played with. Does that make sense?
It does.
And I'll do anything, just like any other man out there that's a man for the kids. I'll do anything for my children. If I gotta die for them, I'm gonna die for them. If I'm a, you know, take a bullet for them, I'm gonna take a bullet for them. If I need to beat that ass, if I need to beat that butt, I'm gonna beat that butt. I do believe in spankings.
Clearly.
But at the end of the day, you know, I don't
So
believe, I don't
Exactly.
not to cause harm.
No,
You know, not
the
to
way
cause
you just said
harm.
it before, I'm like, okay. Yeah.
Well, not to cause harm, but just to give a learning lesson. But you know, you don't have to give a lot of spankings because there's months in between, maybe a year between spankings, because you don't have to do that because all you gotta do is talk about it.
Yeah.
And then after
Communication.
you discipline, we give them hugs. So at the end of the day, this domestic violence turned into me being a better father, me being a better role model, me practicing what I'm preaching, and I'm still doing the best that I can to do that because there's a lot of things that we promise and we talk about we're going to do, but we drop the ball on it and we think it's insignificant to us, but then we find out that people are trying to look up to that and they want us to be accountable. So accountability is really huge. Just saying something out your mouth is not going to really do due diligence. You got to make action. So talk is definitely cheap.
So then what would you tell to someone who's currently being abusive? Maybe they don't even consider themselves.
I mean, you know,
being
mental
abusive.
abuse is really huge too. You know, mental abuse of tracking. Stop asking where your girl is. If she gonna cheat on you, man, just let her cheat on you. At the end of the day, why even worry about it? Okay. So I mean, at the end of the day, if she's gonna do that, that's in her body. That's nothing that you put there, unless you like, I guess, cheated on her or whatever. But if you cheated on her, maybe you shouldn't be with her. You know what I mean? If you're a husband, you know, you shouldn't have to put tabs on anybody. You shouldn't stop anybody from doing anything that they don't that they want to do. If they want to go out and be, nasty, then let them go ahead and go out there and be nasty. If they want to spread lies, let them do whatever they want to do. You can't control another person, but you can control your actions. But if you know how to communicate effectively, which, you know, I'm still learning because sometimes I mess up. Sometimes I might say something. I'm like, well, this is what we do. And actually, you know, you become a know-it-all. And you don't want to be a know-it-all because that's kind of turn off from people. And people think, well, that person's so dumb because he's a know-it-all. So, but anyway, I would say that, you know, make sure that you have a purpose in what you're doing. What do you stand for in a relationship? What are you not going to do? What are you going to tolerate, I guess, at the end of the day? But at the end of the day, you got to make sure that love is there. Love is in a relationship because love is not just a one-way street. You can't just, you know, it has to come both ways, but you have to find out what that purpose of that relationship is. If it's love, if it's teaching your children how to have a decent relationship and how to, you know, talk to people, how to love people, how to, understand other people or try to seek the understanding. How to get out of a fight because sometimes fighting just isn't going to do anything. I mean, it's never going to do anything good for you because you're just going back and forth.
Right.
So just really understanding and sometimes letting things go. You know, a couple months ago we were in a really bad situation, me and my children, and I could have said some choice words. And at that time, I could have been right. Anybody else outside the situation would be like, hey, you know what? You did the right thing because you snapped off, you did this, and that's why I would have did even worse, you know. But showing them like, man, listen, man, let them be. Let these people be. Do what you need to do. And just move on, because you got a life you got to live. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I think that at the end of the day, living your life and doing what your purpose is and knowing what your family stands for is really important. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, like I said, I'm not perfect. I made some mistakes last week. I made some mistakes the week before. I'm going to still make mistakes, but, you know, I'm steady. Sometimes I don't even know the mistakes that I make, but I'm looking back at it. Just like, you know, when you give your life to God, you're gonna make some mistakes. You're gonna sin. You're gonna do these things, but you know, you ask God for that knowledge to know, hey, did I do this right thing? Mm-hmm. You know, I was sitting in the living room one time and I did something and I didn't notice what I was doing, and I was like, you know what? I came back. I went outside, and I took some breath of fresh air, and I came back inside. You know what? I said, you know what? I was silly for even thinking that. I said, now I understand what you were saying, because I took some time to, you know, think about what my girl was saying. I said, you were right. Mm-hmm. I was like, that's crazy. I mean, you just didn't even know that. So, I mean, you can get into that mental abuse and do things, but you got to work on yourself, and don't have a list of what someone needs to be. That list is bullshit. And that's all I got to say. And if you got a list, throw that shit away.
Well, throw my list. No, I'm just kidding. Yes, I need to throw my list away.
Okay, so what are we putting in the to-go box? And maybe, I think you probably pretty much summed up your to-go box, but Chanel, what are your takeaways?
I'm going to say, Brother Lawrence dropped a lot of gems just now, but I will say one thing that you mentioned continuously was purpose, finding your purpose and what that is. And I think that's important in relationships and careers and just period, finding your purpose and what, you know, you're put on this earth to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then for me, one of the things that really stood out is when you talked about you didn't have an identity. So you got to know who you are, right? Which kind of goes along with your purpose. This is who I am. This is what I believe. This is what I stand for. This is what I will tolerate. This is what I will not tolerate. Mm-hmm. You know, it kind of just sets the stage for everything. Did you have anything else that you wanted to add?
No, it was great just to be here, and I'm glad you guys don't mind my southern, you know, accent from down south.
It got real thick.
Can we make an announcement? Okay, so this is not Brother Lawrence's real accent. This is a accent to disguise his identity, for obvious purposes. But nonetheless, we thank you for being here with us today.
Yeah.
And,
thank you.
And we hope that this message will be well received, so that people, so at church on Sunday, my pastor actually said, he was like, you know, people always pray for the people who are the victims, but never for the abuser. You know, so obviously the one who's doing the abusing, they're doing it for a reason. A lot of times it's a cry for help. So I'm hoping that someone will hear this and will look at the situation differently. Just get a little shift on their perspective and say, you know what, maybe that person needs some help. Maybe it's a cry for help. Maybe they need something.
Yeah. And I will say, if you know of anybody going through any of this, on either side, that, you know, someone who's being abused or someone who has been an abuser, there are tons of resources out here. So I know for sure in Milwaukee it's this Sojourner Truth House. So you can find some resources there. And just, you know, I think another thing that we mentioned tonight was communication. Talk to people, you know, get that out. So, yeah.
I agree. You know, not only, you know, just talking, but also, you know, like you say, have that purpose, but writing your stuff out, your goals of what you need for your relationship, because maybe you lose the focus of your relationship because you got the news going on. You got Jim downstairs. You got this thing going on. You got things all the way around you going on that they're here to try to knock you off from what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Fear is going on. But, you know, when you got God in your life and you really just focus on, you know, where you want to go, how you want your family to be, and when you leave this earth, you know, that you can leave a true exit, a true legacy. You know, before I just used to chase money, because I was all about the money all the time. And it couldn't nobody tell me nothing, because if you spend time with me, I was a guy that if you spend time with me, you're going to have to pay me some money or something like that. And I'm serious. Like, you laughing, but I'm serious as I don't know what. And I needed to get my money on all that. But now it's more just purpose, man. Purpose driven is really important.
Gotcha.
So.
Okay, so the domestic violence hotline is 1-800-799-7233. They are 24/7, 365, and they are able to help in 200 different languages. They also have a live chat. So again, the number is 1-800-799-7233. So thank you for listening to Brunch with Besties. Until next time, peace.
Thank you for listening to Brunch with Besties. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to shoot us an email at brunchwithbestiespodcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on Instagram. Our handle is @brunchwithbestiespodcast. For right now, you can listen on SoundCloud. Be sure to review, subscribe, and comment. We appreciate it. Thank you.